screen sharing on
नहीं पहले what is the share?
the screen.
It's share that screen. See, that's fine. इस पे जाए, sharing पे जाए, open करें इसको. Secondary monitor share करो. Hey.
Okay,
Single click.
Frame को आना चाहिए.
2.
Easy to find the glass. Jaldi.
Ideally, I would want your video to appear here. And अब उल्टा हो रहा है ना सारा ये स्क्रीन भी सेट नहीं किया था पहले अब वहाँ प्रेजेंटेशन वहाँ चल रही है आपकी वीडियो वहाँ चलनी चाहिए आपको स्क्रीन पर सिर्फ प्रेजेंटेशन नजर आनी चाहिए बट entirely your choice
टूल कार्ड भी है
इसको हाइड करो वो आपको सारे 18 पोज नजर आ रहे हैं मैं आपको गुस्सा आ रहा होगा
अच्छा मैं बोल रहा हूँ और पोज हो रहे होंगे
हाँ
राशिद आपको क्यों कर रहे होंगे ठीक है आप जब लेंगे जब असेसमेंट वाली स्क्रीन सामने आएगी आप राशिद को इंस्ट्रक्ट करेंगे नहीं आप जब राशिद को इंस्ट्रक्ट करेंगे राशिद कैन बी हैव द पोज ऑन द स्क्रीन नाउ
अच्छा मेरी स्क्रीन पे आ जाएगी फिर वो क्या प्रेसिंग प्लीज एक सेकंड प्रेसिंग
has the recording started
yes
recording good afternoon and good evening ladies and gentlemen whichever part of the world you are in welcome to this session on making impactful presentations this has been a very sort of thought after session a lot of effort has gone into the preparation of this how would accountants particularly how would they be in situations where to make presentations what are the important components of presentations how are they to be delivered do's and don'ts it's very important for any business or for any individual if they have to grow or progress that they know how to make presentations and they're able to make impactful presentations. Without stealing Hamad's thunder, I will like to introduce him first of all and then invite him over. Mr. Hamad Azim is our head of marketing, a very interesting personality, a very an expert presenter, right? and I like him to reveal more about himself when he comes in and introduces himself. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to welcome Mr. Hamad Azim with a big round of applause. So, applause on your question and responses. Hamad, please come over.
Thank you very much, Arun. I am delighted to be here today.
And I must say that Hamad has actually been working for the past couple of weeks on this presentation, rehearsing and re-rehearsing and getting angry and then smiling. So I wish all of you a very interactive session. This session is all about interaction. Ask questions, get engaged in the activities that Hamad has planned, and only then you can get the maximum out of the session. So good luck all of you, and let's hope we have a very interesting interactive session.
Thank you. Thank you. Greetings, everyone. I am delighted to be here with you today and to share my experiences and whatever knowledge I have on the topic of delivering impactful presentations. We are here, and this presentation and this session is being brought to you live from our Lahore head office of ACCA, Pakistan. We've had a lot of entries today, and I mean since yesterday, and that sort of puts a lot of pressure on me in a way, because I'm really hopeful that you can get a lot of insights from this session today which can be useful for all of you in your daily work lives. So let's start. You know, they say presentation is the killer skill we take into this real world. It is almost an unfair advantage. This statement was shared at the McKinsey Mind by Mr. Ethan and Paul. So, having said that, and already Harun has given a little bit of an introduction of myself, but I'm not too big on intros. But for the sake of this presentation, a little bit of my intro is important. So I will, again, just tell everybody that I have been involved in the world of marketing, specializing in brand and brand strategy for the past 17 years. Alongside that, I have accumulated experience from advertising, telecommunications, FMCG, and now the education sector. Apart from this, I've also been involved in the world of performing arts, and namely theatre. And I've been involved with theatre ever since I was very young. And so I wanted to actually share my personal experiences, and I've kind of integrated that into this session, along with a lot of textbook stuff that I'll be sharing with you around the techniques of presenting and preparing presentations. But I would also be integrating a lot of my experience, which I have gathered from performing arts, and which I have used in my daily work life, and it has worked well for me. So, now I go back to this statement which I made earlier, and we were referring to presentation as being a skill. Now, you have a message that you have to share with an audience, and you have to bring them onto your way of thinking, and you have to make this whole journey and this process enjoyable for yourself, and most of all, for your audience. And this way, they would, one, appreciate what you've done, they would come to your way of thinking, and most importantly, they will retain the important message that you are trying to convey. Now, we refer to presentation skills as being a skill. And just like many skills, all the other skills, it is something that we are actually not born with. It is something that we might be slightly good at doing, or we might not be that good at doing in certain areas of the whole process of making and delivering presentations. However, it still remains a skill. And skills, just like all the other skills, like gymnastics, karate, athletics, it's a skill that you need to constantly rehearse, practice, and keep on becoming good at it. Right. So, I will now be sharing a little bit of an overview with all of you as to what you will be seeing in the remainder of today's session. So, there's an overview. We start with introductions. I am going to be trying to make this session interactive as much as I possibly can. And before I sort of get into that, I would also tell you guys and share my personal experience right now, which is the first time I'm ever presenting via a webinar. So usually when you're actually presenting, or I've done it in the past, I've had live audience in front of me. And that really changes the whole dynamic of when and how you are actually delivering your presentation. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because usually when you're sitting face-to-face in an audience, you can make things more interactive. You exactly know, as a presenter, when you need, how your audience is responding to your presentation or the messages that you're delivering. However, on a webinar, since I can't really see all of you, it's difficult for me to judge. So therefore, I will be trying my best to make this as much interactive, webinar. So do bear with us, and if there are sort of slight, hiccups here and there, so I would apologize in advance. But let's try to make this session as much interesting and useful for everybody. So I have split this whole session into 4 important segments, starting from planning your presentations, preparing for your presentations, followed by a coffee break, and moving on to practicing your presentations and then delivering your presentations. We'll be closing off today's sessions with a Q&A session towards the end, and there are a few techniques, some of which are based on my personal experience and some of which are actually techniques which are textbook knowledge, which I think everybody should be aware of. During this whole session, we'll be having breaks. Some breaks I can prompt, and but the way I would like to run this session is that if a break is required, please comment, raise your hand, and we will move on to that break for 10 or 15 minutes. Right. Okay. So before we dig in further into this session, I would like to conduct a self-assessment, and this will be done since I want to know the answers to two important questions which I'll be asking you. What it will do is it will give me a fair idea of where the majority of this audience stands and which are those particular skills that you would like me to, or the majority of you would like me to speak about and spend more time speaking about those specific segments. So there are two questions. One is, what are you good at? So it's the question that I'm asking all of you. So when you are presenting, what do you feel that you are actually good at? All of you, right? And the second question is, what are the skills that you would like to develop? So, please start.
First question is on the screen.
Okay. So, what are you good at?
Yes, we have multiple options to choose from. The first is persuasion, the second is storytelling, and then we have connecting with the audience, command over technical jargon, and awareness about target audience. The attendants can pick one or more than one at the same time. And we are waiting for the results as poll is in progress.
Thank you so much, Rashid. And while we are on this note, please, I would like to take this opportunity and introduce my colleagues who are facilitating this session right now. So you'll be hearing a lot from Rashid, who is here, Mr. Rashid Khan, and we've got Mr. Qureshi here. Both of them will be facilitating us during this session. Okay, so I am presuming that most of you would have answered the first question. What are you good at? Rashid, do we have the results?
Yes, we do. The majority, well, there is a tie between two options.
Okay.
The tie is between connecting with the audience and awareness about target audience.
Excellent, excellent. Great stuff. Can we move on to the second question now, please? What skills would you like to develop?
The poll is on the screen now. And in the options, we have multiple options that our attendants can choose from: emotion management, confidence, verbal and nonverbal communication, humor, and persuasion.
It's very interesting to know that, referring to the first question, that a majority of you have said that you're very good at connecting with people. And that is something that is very, very important. So remember, so all these poll questions, the answers that you actually see, they're really well thought of because they're actually small pieces and bits that fit into the whole process of your presentation making. So for instance, you have mentioned that you're very good at connecting with people, and that's an excellent thing. Please do remember that is one of the most powerful skills, right? If you can connect with the audience, and we will be discussing this in a lot more detail, right? So it's a good thing, yes, and we'll be discussing that in a lot more detail. Okay, the second question, what traits are you actually good at? Or what skills would you like to develop? So can we have the results for that question?
Yeah, sure. let me close the poll, and we have the results. The majority of respondents have answered confidence as the skill and trait that they would like to develop, followed by 53% answering verbal and non-verbal communication. And we had a good amount of people looking forward to develop emotion management and persuasion as well as humor.
Okay, lovely. Yeah.
Surprising to see that very few people are know about humor and how important that is.
Yes. Okay, that is great. So it gives me a sort of gives me a rough idea of all of you, and I kind of know the kind of topics that we would need to focus on. Rashid, if you can just write those two answers on a piece of paper and do pass them over to me. Okay. So let's begin. So what I've done with this session is that I have put it into, as I mentioned earlier, into segments. And I'll just be discussing those segments with you. But before we actually dig into those sections, I want to share something with you. You will find that I have tried my best to keep this presentation, to keep this session as simple as possible. And that is a very important message for all of you as well. Always remember that when you're presenting and when you're working on a presentation, you don't want to confuse your audience with too many things and make things complicated. Whether it be the information which you're presenting, or your slides that you're working on, or the way you are delivering. And we will be discussing all of these things separately as we move on in today's session. So the underlying message over here was simplicity. And moving forward with that simplicity in mind, there are 4 steps that all of you have to remember. I'm not sure whether you're taking notes or whether you are going to be reverting back to the recording of this session. However, if you are taking notes, again, as I said, I'll be keeping things very, very simple so that you remember them. Great. So, the 4 sections and the 4 keys, and I call them the 4 P's of impactful presentations. 1 is your plan. 2nd is your preparation. 3rd is practice. And 4th is present, the actual presentation. Okay, so your 4 P's include 1, plan, prepare, practice, and present. Just remember that. And the reason why I want you to remember this is, and write it down on a piece of paper and always remember it, is because when you are faced with a situation where you have to work on a presentation, please remember these 4 steps. That you have to break your whole presentation, the way you are when you're prepping up for it, into 4 different sections, and you have to actually work on these 4 different sections. And that is the whole presentation, working on a presentation. This is the whole process, this is the cycle, right? And all 4 of them are very important. So, once again, plan, prepare, practice, and present. And I call them the 4 P's. Okay, so let's start with planning. Let's see what's happening when we are actually doing our planning. It's very difficult for me to say that which segment out of these 4 which I have mentioned is the most important one. Because, as the famous saying goes, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And in this presentation creation process, this is very true. If you haven't planned your presentation, believe me, you're going to run into a lot of roadblocks. Okay? So, planning. So, under planning, the key to presenting effectively is to know your goals, your audience, and most of all, yourself. Okay? So your goals, your audience, and most of all, yourself. Now this is how it works. So I'll be speaking about goals and audience in a lot more detail. But some of you might be surprised to hear that, oh, should I know a lot about myself? Can anybody answer that? Let's try this out over this webinar. So you can raise your hand, and if you want to give and contribute, I'm asking you, all of you, a question. Why do you think that knowing yourself is very important? Go for it.
And you can all type your answers in the comment section.
So I'll help you with this. So stuff like some of you are good at speaking. I know most of you are finance professionals and accountants, so you are very good with working with data. Are you good at explaining ideas? Are you good at telling jokes? Are you good with body gestures? You could be good at a lot of things. And then it's important for you to also know what are the things that you are not good at. But anyways, let's just take a pause at why my question was that why do you think that knowing yourself is more important? Do we have any answers?
Yes, we do.
Oh, lovely.
Because there's an answer by Shahan Baloch.
Mm-hmm.
He says, because once you know yourself, you're more comfortable presenting.
Yes, yes. Any more?
Yes. Imran Tariq has answered, because it will help us determine the way for presentation to express.
Mm-hmm.
And Tansir Abbas says, so you can overcome your problems.
Mm-hmm.
Esa Ilahi has said, so that we should work to be better for weaknesses.
Okay, good, good. Okay, so thank you. One, I know that one of you are listening, so that's great. And second of all, your answers are all correct. But remember that we need to simplify everything in our lives, and specifically for this session when we are doing presentation. Communication is a process whereby the simpler it is, the better it will be understood, and the better it will be retained. So, let's think in very simple terms. Why is knowing yourself important? Knowing yourself is important so that you know what you are good at and what are the things that you actually need to work on, right? And then when you're actually faced with a situation where you're standing up and you're presenting, you know what things you are good at, so you can use them, and you can use them effectively. And those things that you are not that good at, right? You can try and sort of, how should I say? You should try and sort of park them on the side and use them, but you need to work on them, so you can further improve on them. But you can use the things more effectively which you are good at when you are presenting. So for example, let me give you an example. Since all of you are accountants, you are very good with working with data, right? So that is something that you should use in your presentation because you're good at it. You're good at explaining. Yeah, you're good at working with data. A lot of people might not be that good at working with data. They get confused, right? So knowing your strengths is very, very important. Playing on your strengths will always, always give you an edge, a competitive edge. And that does not mean that you should completely ignore all the other attributes for making full presentations. It just simply means that you play up on your core strengths more often during the presentation which you are making. Okay? Okay. So let's start with goals. Almost everything that you end up doing, right? We don't just go and do things just for the sake of doing them. We do things because it has a certain objective. And it's always wise that you know your objective and your goal clearly. It's very, very easy for all of us. Actually, it sounds very simple, but in my personal experience, it is very, very easy for us to get confused, right? And if we don't have that clarity of thought, that clarity of purpose, believe me, it will have an impact on the whole process of you preparing on your presentations. So knowing your goals is very, very important. What are your broad objectives? And what is the outcome that you and your team members or your organization is looking for, right? Your audience, remember in the previous slide we've spoken about audience. Yeah, so knowing more your audience, who are they, right? How much do they already know? And knowing your audience will help you calibrate the mindset that they are in. Like for example, when I was working on this presentation, right, I tried my best to kind of figure out, but they were mostly assumptions because this is a very different kind of a group, right? But I wanted to know what my audience, and there were mostly presumptions, what my audience would be like. Okay, fine, I know there are members, there are accountants, there are finance professionals, and based on that information, it can help you when you're preparing for your presentations. Okay, so 2 important things before we move on. Your goals and your audience, right? So you list down all your outcomes very, very clearly. Know your measurement of success, exactly what you're trying to achieve. You need to know that. And I'll be helping you out further in this presentation on how you can actually pinpoint these things. And when we come to audience, there are certain things that you need to know. So for example, how big is the group? Who are they? What role do they actually play in the organization? Whether they are internal stakeholders or whether they are external stakeholders. What do they already know? And what do they need to know? How well does your audience know you, for instance, is also very important. Will your presentation conflict with their views? Question mark. That's an important insight that you need to have. What kind of presentations are they used to seeing? What has worked in the past? What hasn't? So I'll give you another example. So for instance, I make a lot of presentation to both our internal and external stakeholders. So let's talk about the internal stakeholders. I know exactly the kind of presentations that they're used to seeing here in their daily work lives. I know what works well in a place like at my workplace, for instance. And similarly for you guys, you must be seeing a lot of people making presentations where you're participating as an attendee. Some go well, some don't go well. How do you measure those? And you measure those just by what was the goal and the objective, and was the presenter able to meet those objectives and those goals? Right? So these are the tests that you have, and if you know, we usually don't think about those things. I mean, I know a lot of people that I discuss these things with, and just getting information from them when I spoke about these things, and they were really impressed. They were like, okay, fine, I haven't really thought about this. I haven't really paid attention to my audience, or who they are, or what they know, and I haven't really thought about what works in this workplace. You know, your audience is also used to seeing a certain bit of information, whether it's a presentation, whether it's an Excel sheet. They're used to formats, and some formats work well for them, and some formats don't work well for them, right? So you can play and utilize this information, and then you can play up on these things while you're presenting. Okay. Any questions so far? Any questions?
No.
Yeah? Yeah. I would really encourage you, and you will slowly notice that I'm going to get more sort of involved with this whole session very soon. And you know, this is just a warm-up. And you can always interrupt, you can always ask a question, because, you know, and I'm being very honest with you, really. I mean, this is the first time, again, as I said, that I'm doing this on a webinar. I'm not used to conducting sessions via webinar, and I don't know what's going on with my audience, which makes me actually feel very nervous, right? Because I don't really know where I stand with the audience, whether I need to increase the tempo, whether I'm going too fast, whether I need to bring myself back. So if you have a question, please don't shy away. Just raise your hand and ask a question. Right?
But Ravani is saying that it's going perfect.
Oh, lovely. I mean, so so any questions, raise your hand and fire away.
Abdul is asking, how do you craft your message based on kind of audience?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. Good question for us. I will just be discussing that very soon with you. And I will keep it in mind how to sort of craft your message, keeping your audience in mind. That is very important. Like for instance, I mean, again, yeah, most of the stuff that I'm talking about in this presentation, just remember, it's common sense. Right? This is not a technical subject. It's just common sense. So to answer your question, I'll just answer it right now. Let's say I'm working on something around CPEC. And I know that there'll be some Chinese over there. Right? And let's say that I'm crafting my message in Urdu. So you need to, I mean, it's in the very simplest of terms, there will be Chinese people there, and if you can't speak Chinese, what do you do? Speak in English. Right? So when you're crafting your message, let's say that you are, further if I get into this, let's say you're dealing with some senior people within your organization. Now you know that you are delivering to people who are CEO and above, so it could be the board, right? And you're presenting to them. Now when you're presenting to them, right, what happens in real life? They will not have, they wouldn't be, in most cases, they wouldn't be able to give you 1 hour, or not even half an hour, right? So mostly you'll have, let's say you have about 15-20 minutes to present. So what should your message look like? Your message should be very clear, your message should be short, sweet, and simple, and your message should just be able to get whatever you're trying to say across to them, without getting into too many sort of operational details. So this is another example of knowing your audience. Whereas let's say that you were presenting to somebody, let's say, I'll give my own example. Let's say I'm giving a presentation, I'm the department head for marketing, and let's say I'm presenting to some of the new marketing executives who have just joined. So obviously, my message for them is going to be very different. It will be kept basic, but I will need to give them a lot of more information around operational details, right? So knowing your audience, I mean, it all depends who they are, and based on that, you need to craft your message. Your question was a bit vague. It was a very important question, but I think it was a bit vague, as into, it all depends on which segment of the audience you're trying to address. It all depends on, when you are faced with making a presentation, the dynamics can change, your situation can change, circumstances can change. And that's why another important point that I was going to be discussing later on in this session, but always remember to be flexible. Being flexible is very, very important. Every presentation experience is a different one. You need to be dynamic enough, you need to keep your presentations, they have to be dynamic enough, and you as an individual have to be dynamic enough. Right? And let me be honest about certain things with you here. You know, I'm sure you guys have attended a lot of sessions. I'm sure you've seen a lot of technical information, you know, textbook information. But let me just be honest with you. I started my career off at an advertising agency. And what happens at an advertising agency is somewhat similar to a lot of situations that some of you might be in. There are two kinds of presentations that I was making over there. One was a business pitch, right? And that was to mostly marketing heads of different multinational organizations, and that was a pitch, right? So the client, they've called for a pitch, and I'm representing our agency, and I'm going there and I'm telling them why our agency is going to be good for you. And at the same note, I have about 15 to 20 minutes to do this, maximum 1 hour, and I've got the gurus of the advertising world sitting right outside waiting for their turn. I have 15 to 20 minutes where I have to convince these people why our agency is good for them, right? And they are the decision makers. And the second format is when you have already secured the client, you're working with them, and you worked on a marketing campaign, and you have to go in and you have to present that marketing campaign, right? and you have to sell the different ideas that you've been working on. But referring to the first situation where you actually have to go and secure yourself as an agency for that client, there are millions of dollars sitting there right on the table. And whenever I used to walk into that boardroom to make that presentation, and I'll be honest with you, I used to walk in and I used to look at that boardroom, and I used to actually visualize in my mind that there are millions of dollars right there on that table, in that boardroom. I need, or I have rather, 15 to 20 minutes to convince them and tell them why my agency is good for them and why I deserve to go and take those millions of dollars and spend them on their behalf. And for that, my friends, you don't even have enough time to make fancy slides and make, or use these other fancy tools and techniques which I'll be discussing in this presentation. There's only one thing you have. Okay, now I'm going a bit off the topic, but I'm just being very honest with you. And that one thing is you, yourself, and your confidence in believing yourself. And if you have those things, you can sell anything. Whether it's a presentation, whether you're a finance professional, whether you're a marketer, whether you're a politician, or whether you're a movie star. Now I'll be discussing all of these things with you as well, how these things are interconnected, all of them. If you think that I'm going off the topic, please raise your hand now or tell me, give me your feedback, and I'll move on to that. But if you would want me to get into this and further share this with you, I can. Okay? If you ask me personally, what tools do I use, which I'm sharing with you, I'm going to tell you none. I don't use tools to make a presentation. I use the tools like PowerPoint and stuff just so that I can show some visuals, but otherwise, I don't like to rely on tools. And the more you can it all depends. For you guys, you're finance professionals, there are tools that you would need to rely on. But remember, you yourself are the most powerful tool. Think about the politicians, right? Think about Barack Obama when he used to make a speech. Have you ever seen any politician use a PowerPoint or any other sort of tool, right? And to be honest, what politicians do, what are they doing essentially? They have a message. They're coming there, standing on a podium. They're speaking to the audience. They're trying to convince people of their message, bringing them onto their way of thinking. Right? That's what they're doing essentially. And that's all what they're doing. And they're not using any tools. They're not using any PowerPoint. They're just using themselves. But essentially, that is exactly what the whole process is the same, but when you're actually giving a presentation and trying to, whatever your objective might be. So it comes down to public speaking. All boils down to, at the end of the day, about public speaking. All these other things are just tools. I mean, there is no right way or wrong way. I mean, and another thing I will tell you is about presentations and public speaking is look, anybody can come and give a presentation. But use your own examples. See, what are the presentations that you have seen in your life that you still remember, that you can recall? And those presentations, in my opinion, are the best presentations. It doesn't matter whether they used, what format they used, which software they were using, how the information was being presented. Yes, these are all techniques. They will help you. But at the end of the day, think about it, those presentations are in your minds because they were different. So to be honest and be honest with you guys, I mean, every time you do something different to convey your message, it will have more retention. And this is something that me as a marketer, all of us as marketers do understand and realize. Somebody asked me once, Hamad, you're a marketer, can you define marketing to us? So I have a one-word definition to marketing. Marketing equals differentiation. If you are able to create a differentiation of your messaging, of your communication in the market, and it stands out, it will have retention. Retention means that your message will be remembered by your audience in their minds. And that's the objective. Whether you're giving a presentation, whether you're a politician, look at the movies. Let's discuss movies for a bit before we move on. Do you know, a lot of movies have these lines that we remember, right? A lot of films, television shows have these lines that we pick up. What do you think is going on over there? Let's talk about Game of Thrones. Winter is coming. Ned Stark said that. People remember it. When I go to my Facebook, on my timeline, every other post that my friends are making is about winter is coming, or it's related to what Ned Stark said. So what is happening over there? If all movies were the same, do you think that you would remember them? No, you will not. So you remember things which stand out in the clutter of things. Why has Coke invested millions on the 3D advertising billboard that they have just put up on the Times Square? Google it. It's really amazing. Why would anybody spend so much money for creating a billboard? Yeah, but it's differentiation. They have made it because it's appearing in a very different format, and what it does, it creates retention in the minds of the consumers. And that sort of further leads us to the discussion that we will be having, and I really want to have with you, and that was a question that we raised as well, about crafting your message, which is really, really important. So crafting your message, yes, is an art, and then the way you present that message to everybody is an art. And what you're trying to achieve at the end of the day in your presentation, think very simplistic of terms. What are you trying to achieve really? No matter what your message is. You are trying to get your message across to the audience, right? And get their buy-in so that they come onto the same level as your way of thinking is. And they agree with you. And that is the objective. Okay? So crafting your message, let's get onto that, is a very, very important exercise. Now, I hope I was able to answer that question, that how do you craft your message based on your audience? You take all the attributes that you think you know about your audience, and you keep them in your mind, and just be mindful of them when you're crafting your message. You think about the fact that, okay, I have given this message. Will my audience be able to understand this message? Will they be able to reflect on it? How difficult would this message be for them to understand, for instance? Yeah? Make sense? I'm guessing that it does, because I can't really see you guys. Okay. Now, I hope that you're not getting bored. And if you are, I'm really sorry. But in order to counter that boredom and avoid this session becoming a bit monotonous, let's do something interesting where I can involve you guys as well. And that is something that you guys should all remember. It is something very, very important, and it's around crafting your messages. And basically, we call it a business card test. Okay? It will really help you. This is a business card test, relates to your goals and your objectives. And I'll just tell you why we call it a business card test. And it's fairly simple. So those of you who can actually play along and can actually go and get themselves a business card, if you're in an office, try and see if you have one lying around. If you have one in your pocket, do take it out and just put it on the table or anywhere. And do have a pen. If you have it handy, that would be excellent. So just get that business card out. And even if you don't have that business card, just draw one on a piece of paper. But just try to make try to make a box which is of the same size of approximately the same size of a business card. Okay? And on that business card, I want you to write 3 things. Only 3 things. That you actually, imagine yourself that you are actually working on a presentation, yeah? And when you're actually working on your presentation, this should be your step 1. After you have identified your audience and you've done a little bit of mind or on a piece of paper, I don't know. But this is the first step to crafting your message and working on your goals and objectives. So on a card, just write 3 things that you want your audience that you are presenting to, that you want them to remember. Okay, it's very simple. If you're drawing it on a piece of paper, the business card, please don't go outside of that box. You have to write inside of that box. So can I ask a question? Are people doing this? Do we know? Yeah. So please try it out. It's very important that you do try this out. Because I can assure you that you will find this really interesting and that you use this technique. And this can be used not just even for a presentation, even for a small little meeting that you're having. So before going into a meeting, you can just pull out a business card and write 3 things that you would want the people that you are meeting to remember after you're done with it. And really, it's as simple as that.
And if you're having any trouble in understanding what the task is, you can raise
Yeah,
the
just
question.
ask me and I will answer. Okay? So I can also repeat it. So please, just in the space approximately the size of a business card or a real business card, on the back side, just write 3 things that you want your audience to remember once you are done with the presentation. Any?
No comments.
No notes. Okay, I'll give you just a little bit of a moment for you to collect your thoughts. So it could be anything. Just remember any presentation that you're working on. Okay, maybe to make this easier for you, let's say, for argument's sake, you are to make a presentation on climate change. Okay, to wherever you're working. You've been asked to deliver a presentation on climate change. Right? So what are the 3 things you want your audience to remember, yeah, once you are done with your presentation? And it's around climate change. Go for it.
We have the first answer.
Yeah.
That is from Abdul Rahman Majid, saying your message, your personality, your organization.
Your message?
Your personality, your organization.
Okay. Okay. That's really, really interesting. Yes, personality, organization, all these things are really, really important. But remember, we are talking about the message right now. What would you want? But you can even include that. Yes, personality is good. Yeah, if you want people to remember your personality, and if you think you can make that impression with your personality, yes, put it in. I will not stop you.
We have another answer that is from Shehbaz Makhdoom.
Yeah.
He's saying, number 1, the message itself. Number 2, me. Number 3, expected change in behavior.
Okay. First 2 make sense. I'm not too sure about the last one, expected change. But it could be that expected change in behavior. Let's say if you're trying to talk about climate change, what are the behavioral changes that are required within your organization? Yes, so it makes sense. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Remember, there could be anything. You can write anything that is your presentation. You want the people that you're presenting to remember those 3 things that are important. Yeah, because it's your message that you're trying, it's your objective that you are trying to achieve, right? So this is a very small little test, okay, that you guys should try it out. Try it out not just for presentations, try it out for your meetings. Okay, now I'll share something else with you. I use this business card test. I have 2 beautiful daughters, and they're young and they're growing up. And sometimes when I'm having, I wasn't too sure as to how would I be. I grew up in a family that was sort of, we're all brothers. Apart from my mom, we didn't have any sort of females in the house. So transitioning to a sort of a very male-dominated environment to an environment where now I have 2 daughters and my wife that makes 3 females, right? So I wasn't too sure how would I interact with my daughters. So it has been a whole journey and a learning experience for me that I had to bring some changes into my life. But I wasn't too sure how I'm going to communicate verbally, with a girl, like a meaningful conversation with my elder daughter, and she's very smart. You know, she's a smart girl. I always write 3 things down. What I want as an outcome of this session that I'm having with my daughter. Yeah? What are these things that I want her to remember from this session of half an hour that I'm having heart-to-heart talk with my daughter? So you can use this business card test in almost in every situation, whether you're talking to your boss, whether you're talking to an external stakeholder, an internal stakeholder, to a friend, in any situation. I mean, to a parent. It just helps you with crafting and drafting and then communicating your messages. And it sort of contains you. And then at the end, you can go back to this business card. You can pick it up, take it out, and you can have a look at it. And you can see. And after you're done with your Q&A session and everything, when you look at it and you pull this business card out after the end of the session, you will automatically know whether you have achieved your objective or not. Because by the end, when you're being asked the questions and everything, you will either get an assurance from the audience that yes, okay, fine, you know, your idea around climate change is great. We need to make certain changes within our organization so that you know, we are sort of evolving as an organization, and we understand that these are the investments or the changes which are required, and we will give you an approval. Right? So that means that my business card test and the delivery and the end process, I was successful at doing that. So just do try it out. And try it out with just another meeting, the next meeting that you're getting into. Okay? And just take out a business card, just in your car when you're driving, or just before you're about to go, just take it out, just write those 3 things down. And at the end of the meeting, just pull that card back and see, and give a critique whether you achieved these 3 things or not. Okay? And why a business card? I will just tell you, why not a whole piece of paper? Why not a whole diary, right? Why just a business card? Because remember, there was a producer by the name of David Glasgow, and he was a very, very famous producer. And somebody asked him, and somebody asked him a question about his production experience and how he ends up, coming up with amazing stories which he produces then and turns them into plays. And his answer was that the producer, he actually insisted that the core idea of a successful play can be written in a simple sentence on the back of a business card. And that's it. And he encouraged people to try it. So just imagine, he would just say that the core idea of this whole project, this whole script that he's trying to produce, the core idea has to be able to fit in at the back of a business card. And if it can't, that means you have problems. Yep. So it has worked for a lot of people. I'm sure this will work for you as well. So remember the business card test. And it can be used almost in every situation where you are, any situation where you have to communicate your message to somebody else. An audience, one person, many people, your team members, top-down layers. It works in all situations, even in your personal life. Okay? But in the best interest of time and in the best interest of the discussion that we are actually having, we are going to relate this to the presentation skills and you preparing for that impactful presentation. So now you've written down these 3 things. Your next step is creating an outline. And observe on this slide that you can see right now, it is the slide Start Your Outline. Mr. Qureshi and Rashid. Okay, so I'm just trying to see if you guys can see the slide. It's called Start Your Outline. No, we can't. Okay, sorry. Can the audience see this slide? No, Mr. Qureshi, I am requesting, what slide is the audience on right now? This slide. Okay, which slide? This slide. Okay, now I want them to be on the outline slide. Okay, thank you. Okay, apologies for this. I mean, this is technology always ends up messing things up for everyone, doesn't it? Okay, now, are you on the outline slide? Yes. Okay, now, we'll be talking about outline. And observe the visual that I've actually used in the outline. And this is what an outline actually is supposed to look like. There's no PowerPoint. It's a film. Think of it as a film without a script. It just involves a piece of paper and a pencil. And what it essentially is doing, you're creating a structure for your thought process. And usually, it actually looks like this visual on the screen, either on your diary or any piece of A4 paper, or wherever you're writing and scribbling. It's not supposed to be very formal. You're just putting your thoughts down on a piece of paper. However, you need to remember that when you are creating your outline and you've done your business card test, just put that business card right on top of that sheet of paper, right on the top of the desk, and underneath you have your outline. And the reason why you do that, so that you can keep going back and you're reinforcing your 3 key takes from your presentation to yourself in your mind when you're writing your outline. Try it. Just try doing that. Whenever you're working on a presentation, you will notice that you'll be able to create and craft. Remember, the words that people use, it's craft. Crafting your message. And what's crafting? Anybody can craft or make something, right? But crafting actually means that you're creating something and you're careful about it. And how you are careful about it, it's almost like an art, right? Like craft. Arts and crafts, as they say, right? So you're crafting your message. And it is being based on a certain thought process, which we have already mentioned, which is your objectives. Those 3 objectives lying right in front of you on that business card. So you are containing your thoughts, if you will. Okay? Otherwise, our mind is an amazing thing. And I'll be speaking a bit more about our mind as well. I find the human mind really, really interesting. This organ that we have, the human brain, it's just beautiful, right? We will be speaking about how all this also fits into this session. But anyway, coming back to this, so you put your business card right on top. You have your outline, and you have contained yourself. Your thoughts can. They can take you anywhere, right? But you need to contain your thoughts so that you can craft the best message. You don't get sidetracked. You don't start going and speaking about things which are going to make or, they're going to create complications for you when you actually get to the later stages of this whole presentation process. So your structure is really important, and you need to contain yourself, your message, so that it doesn't go haywire and that it's not everywhere. Any questions so far?
There is one question from Fahim Gilani. He's asking, I often tend to exceed my time limit on any presentation. Could you help me know how can I make sure I stay within the time?
Fahim, that is a very interesting question because I almost always do that. I have always gone beyond time, and I can tell you that that's not a very good thing to do. And there are techniques which I'll be discussing with you, how you can try to reduce the chances of this happening. And I will be discussing them later on in this presentation in detail. Okay, and please, if somebody can prompt me to reply to this question. So Fahim, I will be answering ear to this question in this session. That's a very, very good question. And I can tell you from experience that a lot of people that I know, even me myself, it's a very common problem. You're not the only one. But let's try and see what are the solutions to that problem. Anything else?
Another question from Mohammed Axton. He's asking crafting meanings an example. He's asking for any example.
Like crafting your message for an example. For the word crafting. An example for crafting. Okay. What was the name?
Mohammed Essen.
Essen, yeah. Crafting, what I mean by crafting is, think of it as an art. Crafting means creating. Right? It's a form that's why it's always used with arts and crafts. Right? Because you craft means you create something. Now, let me give you an example. And I will use that example elsewhere as well. Let's, for argument's sake, there is a message that Hamad wants to go on the roof, and from the roof he wants to take off to the moon. Yeah, and that's a message. Forget about I'm just trying to just imagine if this was the message. Now there are so many ways of conveying this message, right? And there was another question that was asked earlier about the audience, how do you craft your message, keeping in view the audience. So, keeping in view what kind of audience you have, you will craft your message. And how, I will just tell you. Let's say that I have to say the same thing to an audience where they're all scientists and they are NASA specialists sitting in my audience. So how will I craft this message? I would say, Hamad has to, and I'll be using the lingos they're more familiar with, and I'll be using technical language that Hamad has to get himself to the roof, and from there he is going to get on some kind of a device whereby he's going to use warp speed, to get onto the moon. Right? So I have just, this is for example. So I've crafted my message because I'm sitting with scientists and stuff, and thereby I can get technical. Now, the same message I have to convey to, let's say, a bunch of kids who are sixth graders. How would I say that? So when I'm speaking to sixth graders, that's exactly how I say it. Simplify it. Yeah. So I don't know whether that's the right example or not, but I'm sure you get the gist of it, right? So what happens is that you craft your messages differently, right? Depending on what kind of audience you're dealing with, right? So you can get technical. Let's say that you are giving a presentation in a firm where you're all accountants and you're all finance specialists, right? So you can use your technical lingo that they can understand. Whereas let's say you were giving a presentation to a bunch of marketeers, and if you, God forbid, end up using your accountancy and finance technical lingo, believe you me, they will not understand. And vice versa. If I start using the marketing lingo and technical languages for most of you, that might not be very clear, right? So that is what I mean by crafting your message. Yeah, and this is how the audience is important, because they need to understand that message. I think, was I able to answer? Yeah. Okay.
Now you can move on.
Okay, excellent. So let's move on from the outline. Okay. Here I have a very quick question for my own team. I am not too sure if the slides are moving. They are.
They are moving.
Yeah. Okay, that's very good, because I'm unable to change the slides. If somebody can come and have a look. Okay, great. Okay, let's talk about structure. Again, remember, guys, I've spoken about keeping things very, very simple. Okay? So the screen that you see right now is a representation of the structure. Okay? So let's speak about the structure. So structure consists of your introduction. Remember, it has to be really, really powerful. It needs to have your core message. And you need to be able to get attention of the audience. Remember that when you're working on your outline and on the structure. Then comes the main theme. The main theme is the main content, which probably includes your data, statistical information, there are various other information that you might need to give in your presentation. And at the end, it has your summary and conclusions with your key message, so that you leave on a high note with your message and the audience will remember. While you're at this stage, please be mindful to gather all the data and the information which you need to craft your message. We will also discuss this a bit later. Know exactly where you need to get all that data from. Be mindful of its credibility. You don't want to get your facts wrong. And at this note, let me also share another example with you. You guys are all finance professionals and accountants. And the authenticity of the data, the authenticity of your data is very, very important. I'll share an example. I was in a session with a colleague of mine, and he was giving a presentation, and there was she was giving a presentation, and there was some data that she was actually presenting. And there was some data in her presentation which basically was not correct, but it had absolutely no major sort of connection with her key message that she was trying to give up. Okay? So there was no connection, or main connection, any major connection with her main underlying theme or her objective or her message. It was just a data, one of a small little segment. And somebody pointed out that there was a flaw in that data. So that number that she had coded, that was not correct. And again, I'm saying it had very little to do with the main objective of her presentation. But I'll tell you what happened. What happened was that she lost credibility. Even though that data, which was wrong, it was a mistake, it had not much to do with what she was discussing. But to the audience, she lost credibility. And when you lose credibility, right? And when you're presenting and you lose credibility, then the impact of your message, it loses its strength. And you are not able to really, really make that impact. And that's why, remember, a lot of you are going to be working with data. So a lot of your arguments, a lot of your comms, which is in your presentation, it is going to be backed up by some kind of data, some analysis that either you have done or some analysis that your team has done. But make sure when you are using that data to back up your argument, it is 101% correct. So please go and run those calculations and ensure that the data that you are presenting is correct, because you don't want to lose that credibility. And once that credibility is gone, it's not going to work. Your overall message impact is just going to go down. So that is very, very important. And please be mindful of that. Spend a lot of time thinking about how you would want to structure your presentation. You can do that at any time, whatever works for you. Let me share something with you. I do it right before I open my eyes and get myself out of my bed. It is that small little time when you step out of your sleep and you are somewhat awake in the morning. Yeah, but you're not fully awake, you haven't opened your eyes as yet, but you're conscious of the fact that your alarm just hit off, right? And you, in the next 5 to 10 minutes, either you put the snooze thing on or whatever you have done, but it's that time in the morning. Always, I do it, and I'll tell you why I do it then, and why it works for me. But I do it then, and in those 5 to 10 minutes, I think about my structure that my presentation is going to take. and why I do it at that time. And this is, remember I told you guys that I love our brains. You know, I love the way they work, this organ that we have called brain. And it's good, we have it, we use it. Might as well find out about what it does and how it operates. Yeah. So that time when you wake up in the morning, yeah, right before you step out of your bed, where you are semi-conscious, believe it or not, at that point in time, your brain is most active. You are, let's say if I was to make a graph where you are, your brain is at its most creative, remember? I mean, you know, for presentation, everything requires creativity, right? That's why I love creativity. Even this whole process of creating presentation, you have to be creative. What does crafting mean? It's a creative process. Your brain is most stimulated. It is in the most creative environment, yeah, in that specific hour. And it happens when you're going to bed. It happens. And when you wake up in the morning, it happens. So whenever I wake up in the morning and I have to work on a presentation or a pitch or anything, or a marketing campaign or an idea, I try to actually consciously focus on that campaign or that presentation or something which involves creativity. So let's say we're talking about the structure of my presentation. I know what my 3 objectives are, which I want to leave with my audience. I have that in my mind. Yeah, I can think about that. But I'm just about to wake up and I'll think about how I'm going to structure my presentation. Yeah, does it make sense? And it works really well for me. Try it out. Yeah, and always remember, it doesn't matter if you're a finance professional or if you're whoever you are, even if you're a doctor, creativity is very, very important. And as you can probably now see, the importance of creative elements, yeah, and creative thinking. There is no innovation without creativity. Creativity is a very important thing. Please refer to some of our R&I reports as well, professional accountants, our R&I pieces. We give you a lot of insights. Sorry to bring off the topic, but you know, I'm a marketeer, so yeah, I don't know if you got that or not. But anyway, so yeah, so try it out. Okay? That's a space where your mind is most creative. So think about the structure that you want to create, and it will come to you. Another thing that I practice a lot, and it really, really helps. So, for instance, when I'm about to make a presentation, I always consult my boarders. I consult them, I tell you how. I consult them over lunch, I consult them over a cup of tea, I consult them if they're driving for a meeting somewhere. I start talking to them that, oh, you know, yeah, this is the topic, and you know, I have to work on this. What do you think about this? What do you think about this message? What do you think? Where do you think I can find some information to back up my conversation or this point that I'm trying to make? And literally, guys, I mean, your team members or people that you work with are your best source of information, because you know they understand what we are doing. You don't have to sort of explain the whole thing to them because they're all working with you. They understand, you know, what your work requires, and sometimes they will be able to give you the best answers, which you can use for your presentation. So always remember that consulting your peers, consulting your co-workers is really, really effective. Yeah. Okay, good. So let's just move on from structure. Okay, now we come to the next section of our presentation. So now you've got your outline with you, okay? Starting from you know exactly what you want to achieve because you've done the business card test. You've started working on your outline. You know what that is. Yeah, you're given a structure to the whole presentation that you will be creating. Okay? So what's next? Next step is preparation. Yeah? So you're preparing now. Now you're putting all those thoughts that you put down on a piece of paper, and you're going to now transform them into an environment, into into a space where it can be presented and shared professionally. In order for us to do that, we have many tools available. Yeah, and we use them on our daily lives. And some of us use them, and some of us don't use them. But we, because we are in, we're all professionals, we get to use a lot of tools, and they are really helpful. Okay, and for most people, they are very, very effective. But having said that, I've also seen presentations with just one slide and one word written on them, just like the slide that you can see on the screen. And their whole presentation, the whole 30 minutes of their presentation, just had one message, and that's it. And then they presented. And those were some of the best presentations I've ever seen in my life. Yeah, but those people are really, really good in terms of just what they're trying to communicate, their knowledge and everything. And it's just the way they present it. And I still remember and have that recall of those presentations in my mind. Now, I'm not saying that you guys should all go and do that. Please don't try that until you're fully 110% confident that you can actually do that, and you can reach your desired objective. Okay? So preparation. So for preparation, we have a few softwares that are available to us. The one that you're probably more familiar with is PowerPoint presentation. And isn't that lovely? We all love PowerPoint. It is a great software. It will always have a competitive edge because it's a Microsoft product. It has a lot of integration capabilities with other software, specifically ones which you use on a daily basis almost, the spreadsheet, Excel. There are many tools available for integrating and presenting your information in PowerPoint, and it still to this day remains number one. Having said that, please do not ignore, and this is one more mistake which all of us make. We think that there is just PowerPoint and there is nothing else, and that's just it. There is nothing beyond. There is nothing better, or even if there is, we don't want to know about it, right? I don't know why we do that, right? Just try to explore. Yeah, just try it out. Just go and do it, and just go and explore. Go on these websites, and I'll give you a few names you can write about. Try out Prezi, for instance. Just try out the demo. It has all these softwares have their limitations, including PowerPoint. There's another really good one. Those of you who are more attuned to using Mac software, use Keynote. It's really interesting. There are a lot of features in it that I actually find interesting. And the integration between my devices is something that I find phenomenal. So I can work on my phone, I can work on my iPad, I can work on my Mac. Okay, and there are really cool things that I can do. Also, Prezi in environments. Keynote has this. Let me get back there. Okay, custom slides. Custom slides is another one. Then there's Clear Slide. It's another one. Use Explore, because I'm sure you use a lot of analytics in your discussions and your presentations. So try them out. Some are good with analytics, some are not. But just go and see what works, what you feel comfortable in. Yeah, and then there's Slide Dog as well. So I've just named these 5, 6 the top presentation software available. Go explore. Their demos are available free of cost. You can try them out and see which one fits best for you or works the best for you. PowerPoint, Prezi, Keynote, Slide Dog, Custom Slides, and Clear Slide. And there are many others. There are countless. Just go and explore. Google them up. And then see which one you would want to use. And they're all very user-friendly. We live in a digital age now. Little kids are now using softwares. My daughter the other day was working on a presentation I saw. But anyway, so the point that I'm trying to make is they're very user-friendly. They're not very difficult. You just have to go there in your free time, play around with the softwares, and see which one works best for you. Only you know what your message is. Only you know what message you're trying to communicate. Only you know what tools you're using to reinforce your message that you're trying to communicate. And based on all of that, pick up the best software that you would want to use, which is easy to use, and it will give you an opportunity to present your message. Okay? Any questions on this?
Yes, we do. Well, not on this, but we have previous questions pending. question is from Devashi Nag. Devashi is asking us very interesting question. Generally, I do crafting after preparing my presentation slides. Is it fine ultimately? Like, Devashi is not crafting the message in the initial stages. Once the presentation is complete, and then Devashi goes ahead and fine-tunes it.
And what's her name?
Devashi.
Devashi, that was a lovely question. Again, any question that you will ask me, I will never say that it's wrong. Okay? You will never ever hear me say, no, you should not be doing that unless it's completely off. Look, Devashi, if it's working for you, if you think that this technique has worked for you, I mean, usually, let's say if you ask me or if you ask, majority of the people, I would not advise them to do that. And the reason why I would not advise them to do that is because there is no point. If she's going to crafting her message after she is done preparing her presentation.
Yeah, like first she prepares a very generic presentation, and then she tailors it.
Well, I mean, if you think that that's worked for you, I mean, Devashi, I don't know if that's. Why don't you tell me, has that worked for you?
Yeah, I think
it's not an ideal situation. It's not sort of technique that everybody uses. Usually you're supposed to work on your outline and your messages way before you start getting on to working on your presentation. Your outline is very important. Structure is very important. But I mean, I don't know. Has it worked for you for her?
Okay, we will wait for the answer from Devashi, but we have another question from Fahim Gilani. Fahim is asking, what can be done when, as a presenter, you face questions from the audience which you do not have an answer to? How to handle such situations? Obviously, we don't want the audience to know that we do not have an answer.
Okay. Well, my answer to that is, again, be honest. Right? I mean, this has worked well for me. If I don't know an answer, believe you me, I'm not going to start making up stuff, because in that way, I'm probably going to end up in a situation which is even going to be worse than the one that I'm in right now, not knowing the answer. So let's say if you guys ask me a question and I don't have an answer for it, I am just going to tell you that I'm really sorry, I don't have the answer for this question. But I would not try and sort of, if I don't know it, try to make some stuff up. I don't know who is sitting in the audience, maybe they already know, and I'll be compromising just not my own credibility, but the credibility of the organization, depending on the situation I'm in, and that I'm representing. So I would always be honest with my answers, and I would tell them very politely, I'm really sorry, I'm not too sure about this at this stage. However, I can get back to you. Okay, I would take their contact details, I would go back, I would find out, I would do my research, and I would make sure I get back to them. But I would not try to come up with an answer which which is wrong, or just to try and deceive them somehow. I would never do that. No. So be honest with it. And there is absolutely, guys. Remember, honesty is such a powerful and such a beautiful thing, right? And I don't know why people confuse it so much. I mean, life can be very beautiful and very simple. I mean, you just have to make your own mind see things in a way. You just have to be honest. Nobody's going to judge you, right? And even if they did, okay, fine. He doesn't have the technical knowledge. You apologize. You're all human beings, right? I mean, if the other people in the audience think that they're wanting you to be perfect, then that's bad on their part, because nobody is perfect. I haven't at least come across anybody who's 100% perfect. We're not perfect. Just be honest about it. You don't know. You'll get back to them. Yeah.
Well, just to your recent slide, there's a question. Sir, which one is the best presentation software as per your experience? If you had to give a recommendation.
If I was to give a recommendation, completely. Again, I would not want you to go with my recommendation. Okay. I present very different kinds of presentations, and usually they're campaigns. Usually they're visual based. Usually they have even a video or something, and they have a lot of strategy work. So it all depends what you are trying to do, what field you're in. If you guys are all accounting and finance professionals, you need to find out, You need to use a software which will help you present your information, your data in the best possible way. And you need to go and explore, right? You need to go in, I mean, in PowerPoint, yes, it's also pretty good because, as I mentioned earlier, because of its integration with other applications. But at the same note, look at custom slides, look at slide dog, look at just Google. The best software for presentation for finance professionals. I mean, if you just Google that, right, list will come up. Then you go and explore. Only you know how you want your data to be, or your information to be represented and presented to the audience. Yeah. So you go and do a little bit of your own sort of research. Okay, guys, I think we've been going on for a while. Shall we take a 15-minute break? And I don't want to lose you, so please do stay with us. We haven't really gone through, we've still got a lot of important stuff to cover. Actually, the stuff that really can make and break your presentation is on the next slide, along with a lot of interesting stuff. If you have any feedback into the session so far, any kind of feedback would do. You don't like the color of my hair or the way I'm smiling or something, please do share. And I don't know if I can do anything about that, but there's some other feedback which I can do something about. I will. So I will see you all beautiful people next 15 minutes. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Much better.
Audio testing. Audio testing. Audio testing. सर एक और इशू है कि यहाँ पे ऑप्शन ही नहीं आ रही वीडियो रिकॉर्डिंग स्टॉप करने की या मुझे नजर आ रही
शेयरिंग के नीचे पड़ी मोबाइल स्टॉप है
was showing my screen freeze on last frame yeah
बाहर से निकल तो ना कुछ
नहीं मैंने कुछ नहीं किया
तो वो हो गई वो पूरा रिकॉर्ड ऑडियो में
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good to be back, for me at least, and I hope you guys are there and you're back.
Can you ask them if they can hear you and listen that sound is better?
Yes. We've just made a few tweaks to the sound. Let us know if you can hear us, hear me, and is the sound better than before? We just made a few tweaks. Is it any better? Okay, good. So let's have a little bit of a recap for what we have discussed so far. So, starting with the first two steps, our planning, in which we have the business card test, we identified our goals and our objectives, and we used those to move on to our outline that we had created on a rough piece of paper, a draft, if you will. And we had used those three objectives that we had written to form a structure, an outline to our whole presentation. And now we are at the preparation where we are going to decide which tools we should be using, how we are going to be representing all the information which you have presented in your outline. And we have crafted our message, and now we are going to the actual preparation side of things. Okay. So, crafting your message. I would want to discuss this in a little bit more of a detail, and this will definitely answer some of the questions which you might have had earlier on. So, crafting your message. You have to define your core message. Okay? And remember, most of the stuff that we are discussing over here, some of it that you've already done in your outline. So when you're preparing your outline, your mind is automatically doing that craftsmanship. Yeah? It's creating that message for you if you follow the whole process through, if you follow the 4 Ps. Okay? So your mind is now crafting those messages for you. And in that, we had already discussed which 3 things that you wanted your audience to remember. That is your core message. The core idea should always be short, sweet, and simple. Write it down somewhere. Short, sweet, and simple. Have you chosen the most critical message to articulate? It's a question that you need to ask yourself. And that you do by identifying your relevant arguments and presenting the relevant data to support your argument. Okay? And you need to ask yourself these questions. Whether you have done it, have you been able to articulate? It's an ask yourself and test. Okay? Okay. Every part of your presentation should advance and move forward, yeah, onto the next message. But it has to have a connection with the message that you have just relayed earlier on. And if you notice, it is the same thing which I'm trying to do right now. Okay? Organize the content And this process, we call it storyboarding, which is very, very important. And you might not realize it, but your outline that you're creating is actually a storyboard. And for those of you who are not familiar with the term storyboard, a storyboard is used for whenever you are creating a movie, when you're working on a film, whether you're working on a television commercial, or whether you're working on any communication material. Okay, similarly with your presentation, it needs to have a storyboard. But essentially, what are you doing when you're presenting? Again, I would urge you to think in a very simple way. What are you essentially doing when you're presenting? Isn't it very similar to when you are telling a story? I find it very, very similar to telling a story, narrating a story. Yeah? Use your own personal insights which you have gathered over so many years of working in the professional environment and working offline from the professional environment when you have been in a situation where you have been told stories. Think about the time when you were young, when you used to listen to stories, people tell you stories, your parents or teachers. Or back in my time, we used to have those tapes with stories in it, those cassettes, those cassette stories that we had. I used to avidly listen to those, and I used to find them really, really interesting. So essentially, what it is, it's just like a story that you're telling. And the best story is, which has a storyboard. And the storyboard, what it does, is just an outline which helps you when you're crafting your message and you're getting into your preparation stage. Yeah, and that's what essentially a storyboard is. And believe me, sometimes you can even use illustrations with those of you who are good at drawing. You can even draw your thoughts or how you want your story to progress. Right? So it's a personal choice. I always look at the presentations that I'm working on as just like stories. Okay? And that's how it sort of goes. And moving on, so then let's speak about the 4 important parts of your presentation content. Okay, it has 4 parts. It has the opening. Yeah. Remember, we're speaking about crafting your message now. So the full process, it's a 4 steps that you need to include in your presentation content. The opening, and you need to be mindful of the purpose and the preview. Okay? So purpose and the preview. Is it a need or is it a problem that you're trying to address? Let me give you an example. Climate change we were talking about. Let's say we're still, that's the topic that we've been given on climate change. So our presentation that we are giving, is that a need or is it a problem? In some cases, you could be due to some government regulations. You're being now bound to present some solutions around the climate change and as to how your organization is operating. Or is it a need? Something has happened and your organization, let's say if you're in oil and gas sector, your organization has to take these steps. So yeah. So whether you need to identify, is that a need or a problem what you are trying to do? And then moving forward, you need to present a solution. Okay, in your message. And again, depending on what exactly your topic is and what exactly you're trying to present, and if you keep that in your mind, it will make more sense. And almost in all situations, you need to have a call to action. A call to action is generally, again, if I was to give you an example, let's say we have climate change, so whether the call to action is indicating that we need more resources, whether we need more investment, whether we're using certain software which requires training that you are trying to get an approval for. All right? So just be mindful, depending on your topics, but at the end of the day, almost all topics need to have these 4 things when you're speaking about your presentation content. So the opening, whether it's a need or a problem, the solution which you are trying to communicate, and what is the call to action, right? So without having these 4 components, your presentation would somewhat be incomplete. Okay? So just write these 4 things down, and when you're actually, you can go back to these 4 things when you're actually working on a real-life presentation, and you will notice that this will make sense. And it will help you with crafting your message. Okay. Now, packaging. It does matter. Okay? Packaging. What is packaging? Packaging is, think of how you would package a product. Yeah? So in this sense, packaging is how you are displaying and showcasing your message. Yeah? So presentation, packaging does matter, no doubt. Sorry, just hang on, we're having a little bit of an issue here. I apologize for this. Okay, I just need to scroll down. I just need to find the cursor over there, Rishi. Where is the cursor? It's on this one. Okay, thank you. Sorry about this, guys. Okay, we're speaking about packaging, and what does it mean in terms of when you're presenting? So packaging basically is how fancy slides that you have made, how cool they're looking, or how nice they're looking visually. And yeah, it does matter a lot. Yeah, but always remember that you need to back them up with facts, logics, and examples, and that's very, very important. The core idea should always, I mentioned, it should be short, sweet, and simple. Okay? Have you chosen the most critical message to articulate? We've already discussed that. Ask yourself test is very, very important. Okay? Okay, now that you have done all of that, yeah, but your arguments need to have facts, logic, and it has to be backed up by several examples. You want them to arrive where you are. And remember, and I told you, and you want them to enjoy the whole experience of getting there. Every presenter makes a case. But just like the lawyers sort of operate in their cases when they're working, yeah, it needs to be backed up by a strong case. It needs support. It needs to be supported. Yeah, your argument needs to be supported. Choose data and facts very, very carefully. Now, I have already mentioned previously that how important it is for you to pay attention to the data that you're using. And because it can help you, it can either help you build credibility, or because of it, you can end up losing credibility. And I've given those several examples to you that why credibility is really important. Okay? One of the most important things, and we had discussed that initially, and a lot of you had said that you're very good at doing that, and that was connecting with your audience. Now, what does that mean? If you form a connection with your audience, and this is a limitation that I am feeling right now, and perhaps that is something that I need to work on, right? Because I'm limited. Because of the format of this session, which is why I'm webinar, I'm unable to form that connectivity with you guys because I can't really see you. It's very important for every presenter to form that connection, to build a rapport with the audience. It defines the purpose, highlights the importance for the audience, and gives you credibility. Yeah? And gives a preview to your audience. Okay? Now let me sort of simplify this and explain this to you because I feel this could be getting a little complicated. Okay, to simplify this, I will share an example with you. I was once asked to deliver a presentation, and everybody, obviously sometimes reputation, you have your reputation and image. Sometimes it works for you, sometimes it can get you in a bit of trouble. So a couple of years ago, I was in a situation where we were working on a project.
I had just arrived. I was abroad, and I had just arrived. I didn't have time to go through the history and for the project or what we were trying to do. Essentially, I didn't have that much time. My boss was with me, and he himself did not really know much about the background. So, and one of our colleagues said, "Oh, you've got Hamad with you. Don't worry, he'll take care of it." And I just looked at my colleague, and I'm like, "Really? Okay, how? And you expect me to take care of this? Where So I was really, really nervous, and I had to go in this auditorium and make a presentation and speak about a project to which I had very little information on. Right, and I had, because as I said, I was away, I was feeling really, really nervous, and I didn't know how, and my credibility was on stake in front of my coworkers, and especially my boss, right, and they were like, "Oh, your Hamad is with you, he'll take care of this, don't worry." I was feeling very, very nervous that how am I going to tackle this. So as soon as we entered the auditorium, I don't know what happened, through some miracle of God, I'd say, or, I remembered some of these things that I'm actually talking about, that, these techniques. So I immediately went in, and we were about 10, 15 minutes early. People were still coming in. The audience was getting settled. And so I was asked, they had special seats for where we were supposed to be sitting because we were presenting. So instead of going and sitting there, I went right into the audience. And as people were coming in, I started conversing with them. I mean, I started dialogue. I just started talking, then just said, "Hello, how are you?" Very soon, in about the next minute or 2 minutes, a couple of people just gathered over there, and we started having a conversation. And then there were other people in the auditorium who were not really there in our group, as I got nearby, but they could actually hear what we were talking about, right? And there were the audience size was maybe about, and we had about 80 or 90 people in the audience. It was an auditorium. So anyway, as they were coming in, and I started chatting with them, some of them could hear me. So what happened, even if they weren't, I wasn't really conversing with all those 90 people, but they could hear what we were talking about, and they were able to sort of get to know me a little bit. I was able to get to know them a little bit, especially the group that I was actually talking to and speaking with. And believe me, after 10 minutes, I went to the podium. I was really, really nervous, as I had mentioned. I didn't have a lot of information about the background for what that project was, and I had to speak on. But just those 10 minutes that I spent speaking to the audience, it helped me so much that I was able to cruise through the next 40 minutes of that session. Really, just literally cruise through. And then I was able to actually, the people that I had already spoken to, I could interact with them. Yeah, I could, because I had formed a rapport with them. So just try it out. If you're going in a situation, if you're presented with a situation where you're going and making and speaking about it, conducting a session, giving a presentation, but you spent 5 to 10 minutes before the session just speaking with them, it will immediately change the whole landscape for you, and you would walk out of that auditorium or a boardroom or that meeting or a session as a very happy man. I mean, this is tried and tested. Try it out, and so forming that rapport, because I knew some of them. It's almost like they knew me. I was able to bounce some of the stuff off them and ask them questions. Okay, Mr. Shazad, remember we were just discussing that a while back. What are your insights into this situation? So the stuff that I was not aware of myself, I was able to get the audience to answer on my behalf, and it worked brilliantly, right? And my team members were really happy. My boss was really happy, and he actually thanked me because it was actually him who was supposed to be giving that presentation and not me. But at the end, we all walked out very happy, and it was an experience for me. It was a learning experience for me. Okay. And one more important thing that I would share with you at this point would be always remember to connect with the audience emotionally. Okay? Be explicit about why your audience be explicit about the fact that why you actually care about the message that you're trying to give to others. And if your audience can actually see that in you, that you actually care and you're involved with the topic that you're actually speaking about, and you're passionate about it, you care about it, right? It will help you build that credibility. And credibility is something that your audience is looking for, subconsciously, right? They're not talking about it, that's not happening. This is a subconscious process that is happening and taking place at the back end of our subconsciousness, our brains, if you will. Yeah? So show them that you actually care about climate change. Okay? You're not just standing there and just because you have to do it, and it's either it's a need or however we have identified it as a problem or something that you're just there just for the sake of it. No. You need to convince yourself first of whatever you're trying to communicate. If you yourself don't believe in it, if you yourself don't have the right conviction, you will not be able to have and create that impact. It will just not work. Okay? Now, some of you can be really genuinely interested in that idea, and some of you might need to actually try hard to portray. I'm not going to tell you to lie. As I said, I think in order to connect with people, the best way to do it is be honest. Okay? And if you're honest, you will form the best connection to the people. And when you're presenting, people will be able to tell whether it's just an act that you're just putting up, or you actually genuinely care. Yeah? Now, I don't want to sort of, but let me be very honest. It's part of the presentation to one side. It's one question. Imagine there's somebody who's asking a question, Hamad, why are you delivering this presentation on presentation skills to ACCA members? It's not in my job description. I'm not a trainer. I make presentations for myself to achieve my own goals, to achieve certain goals which are in my job description. Yeah. But let me tell you this. I genuinely, actually care about the fact that I want our members to be really, really good in these skill sets. Because I know, after having been associated with ACCA, that how important these skill sets are for our stakeholders, especially our students, affiliates, and members. Because I know that they're technically really, really sound. I know technically our members are perhaps far ahead than most of the other sort of professional accountants and bodies. I know our members are really smart. I know our members have a lot to offer, not just to the organization that they're working for, but to this country or any country where they are operating in. And I really, really genuinely want them to be good and having these skills, not just presentation skills, but overall leadership skills. There's so many there now. We've even identified in some of our reports the kind of skills that professional accountants should be having. Again, referring to our reports, Professional Accountants of the Future. For those of you who haven't gone through the report, please, I strongly suggest that you do so. Please, I strongly suggest that you utilize all the resources that ACCA provides you with. Anyway, so part of the reason why I'm actually sharing my experiences with you and why I have worked on this presentation, this session for you, is because I genuinely want you guys to excel. And every presentation that an ACCA member makes, I want it to be impactful and I want it to leave a mark. Okay? And that's my story. What's yours? Ask yourself, what is your story? Why are you there? Are you just making a presentation because your boss asked you to? Are you genuinely, do you believe in what you're trying to communicate and tell your audience, whatever topic that might be? Try to convince yourselves first before you are about to make any presentation. And believe me, your audience will pick it up. And you can always remember that you having your credibility while you're presenting will help you. Okay? It will make your whole experience really nice with the audience, both for you and for your audience. Okay, any questions?
Yes, there's a similar question by a number of attendees. There's a question from Gilani as well as from Abdulrahman Majid. They're asking how to deal with the fear of being on stage under the spotlight.
Okay, that's a good question. Thank you, Fahim. You'll be happy to know that I will be answering this question as we move on. So I can answer it. I think it's already in my session, and I will be addressing it. Don't worry. Just park your question. It will be answered. Anything else?
Yes, there's another question from Umar Arshad. As you mentioned, isn't a need and a problem one and the same thing? Since both requires action to settle it, and in one way or the another, then why the need to differentiate between need or problem?
Okay. A need is something. Let's speak of how should I explain this to you? But they are similar, but they are not similar. A need is something that it's a need of your organization. Okay, and if you have identified that as a need of your organization, then the way you set the tone and you craft your messaging is going to be very different to whether you have identified a problem and then coming up with a solution. Okay, a need is something. Let's talk about, since we're our members and professional accountants. You have, let's say that new standards have been introduced, right? And your organization needs to sort of be up with those. So that becomes not a problem, it becomes a need. Okay? A problem can be, let's say that there are a few irregularities in the audit, right? And your executive director and the board has asked you to come and share those irregularities with them, right? That could be a problem as opposed to a need. Okay? Having those inconsistencies is not a need. It is obviously a problem. Yeah. So I hope I was able to explain the difference between need and a problem. So in essence, they could be similar, but it will definitely, if you identify it and if you're conscious about it, and you know that it's a need that you are addressing, or it's a problem that you are. A need will have probably more. It will have explanations. You need to explain either way. Why is it a need? You need to convince, let's say, people in your boards, your senior stakeholders, that why is it a need? Why is it a need for us at ACCA to have really cool webinar equipment? Yeah, I mean, it's not a problem. Yeah, it is our need. Because in this way, we can engage with more of our stakeholders. We can get our message out. A lot of members don't, they're sitting all across the world. So it's a need of the hour. It's the way the world is heading. It's efficient, right? It's not. I wouldn't identify that as a problem. Yeah. So it's a need of the hour. Okay. Any other questions before we move on?
We'll take just one more question.
Okay.
This is from Ensa Ilahi. As you mentioned in the structure of your presentation, you mentioned about the opening. Can we include the background of the topic in the opening as a preview of your presentation?
Sorry, if you can include the background.
The background.
Okay, an opening. Let me just sort of let's talk about the opening. Remember, opening is a very powerful part of your presentation, right? An opening has to be impactful. Your opening has to give out the key sort of message that you're trying to address without getting into too many details. your facts and everything come in later when you're in your structure. Remember, you have the main sort of body in the middle. So that's where your other sort of backup information comes in. Those pieces sort of come in. But in the opening, it has to be powerful, yet it has to be clear. Yeah. Usually you can start with telling a really powerful story, but it obviously needs to have some kind of a connection. You can start with a very powerful quote. Some people like to start with video content, before they begin their presentation, a really powerful message, in a video like a monologue, or it could be anything depending again on what you're trying to, what's the objective of your presentation, right? So opening needs to be powerful. It needs, you asked me whether you should have the background. Yes, if it's important for you to make people understand your core objectives, then yes. Otherwise, no. If it's not required, no. But then again, you see all these blocks fit in. If it was a puzzle, like let's say, to answer your question, if you know your audience, right, and if you're aware of the fact how much information they already have, if they already have the information, you are just wasting your time giving them the background. You should just go straight, sink your teeth in to the main crux of it. So for example, you start speaking about the core objectives. Okay? So let's say you're going in a place where they're not your belief, it's a different audience, they're not really well versed with what your core idea is, and then you will have to actually dig deeper and present a little bit of a background in your opening. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So guys, in the best interest of time, let's just move on, and we will be taking these questions. Okay? Okay, resources. Now, resources are very, very important as well. And once you are done with crafting your message, you've used your outline, you know which software you'll be using to give the presentation, right? That software that you're using is a resource. It's a tool or a resource. Okay? The venue that you're presenting is also a resource. You need to know what the venue is going to be like, if you can. In some cases you can, in some cases you can't. Right? But information that you can get access to, you should know. Okay? You should exactly know what resources you have at your disposal when you're presenting. Whether you're going to have a clicker, which is going to help you move your slides. What kind of software, whether it's the same version of the software. Let's say you've been working on a different version of PowerPoint, and if the computer, there's a different computer that you'll be using to actually present what version of PowerPoint or that application that you're using is installed on that system. You need to know all these things. Yeah, what is the venue going to be like? Is it an open venue? Is it an auditorium? Is it a boardroom? Does it have a classroom setting? Does it have a sort of the oval room setting? Yeah, so these are the round table setting, right? How much time will you have to present is very, very important. Okay, so let's say in most cases, on average, you have about half an hour for your whole presentation, out of which 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes are usually allocated to you actually giving, speaking about the presentation, and usually 10 minutes are given to the Q&A session. And you need to be mindful of that. And based on this time, you have to actually create your presentation. Okay? Let's say you have only 15 minutes to present, and you have not really taken that into consideration, and you have created 20 slides. Okay? Then if you have 10 minutes to present, that means you'll be spending, do the mathematics. You're spending what, 30 seconds per slide. Yeah, that's not going to work. So it's good to be mindful of how much time that you have at your disposal to present. And equipment that you're using. And you know why this information is important, and I will discuss that later as well, because when you are rehearsing, when we get to that stage of rehearsing your presentation, and I will get to it why that is important, you will need to know what resources you have available with you currently, and what resources will you have available with you on the day of your actual presentation. And we'll be discussing this and it'll make sense to you. Okay? Okay, now let's get to a part which I absolutely love. And probably that's because I'm a marketer, and I do tend to think of myself as slightly being creative. So I do like to pay special attention to the design work. Okay? Now, good design is good business. Always remember that. Okay? Good design is good business. And now, in the next section of this session, we will be discussing a lot of design stuff about design work. What designs work, what designs you should stay far away from. Okay? What will your presentation look like? That is what will stay in the minds of your audience. And it is up to you, completely as a presenter, what visual memory you would like to leave in the minds of your audience members. What information, that visual memory, you would like your audience to retain after your presentation. Okay? That is very, very important. And let's just discuss the design in a little bit more detail. Okay, planning your visuals. Okay, I also just want to make it clear to you that the definition of visual with respect to this session. So when I say visual, I'm not talking about just one picture or a graphical representation or one JPEG which you are going to put on your screen, such as the one I have used. So for me, the visual is the entire canvas, whether it be whether your presentation is being displayed on an LCD screen or whether it's being displayed via a projector on that screen. So that whole canvas is actually the visual, right? That whole frame is the visual. So it's not just one picture or one video or one graph on the whole canvas or the slide. It's the whole thing is the visual. Because me as an audience, right, if I'm watching you present, I can see you, but alongside you, I can see the screen. In fact, you yourself are a part of that visual, and we will be discussing that a bit later in this presentation as well. Okay, but now let's talk about the frame. That's the visual. So very quickly, we are going to discuss the do's and don'ts of visuals. Okay, so do's. Graphics, icons, symbols, use them to reinforce your messaging. They are really, really important, and specifically for you lot as a group, because you are, again, accountants and finance professionals, you would be relying a lot on a graphical representation of your data. Okay? You can't really just open up spreadsheets and show each and every number like the way it's displayed on a spreadsheet. Obviously, you would want to put it in a form, which can present your analysis, and back up your communication or your message. Yeah. So it is very, very important for you to pay attention to the right graphical representation you are using to inform everybody about your message and your analysis. Okay. Use keywords and avoid using full sentences on your slides. Okay? So don't use the entire sentence. Use keywords. Okay? So use those keywords. If you put down the whole sentence, you'll just be reading it off the screen, and that doesn't really help. And you should never ever read off from the screen. You should just use your keywords on the slides to give you that little and form that connection with the whole sort of statement that you will be making, or the message that you will be delivering to your audience. Okay? One concept and no more than 6 lines of text per page. So for example, when you're discussing a concept, let's say planning your visuals, just this slide, look at it. So it has the concept on this slide is planning your visual. Now imagine if I was to put 2-3 more concepts on the same slide, along with their attributes. It would have just created a bad slide and too much information and a clutter. And what happens when there is clutter? What happens is that people don't know which message out of all the messages that you are bombarding them with to retain. Okay? And your main message of that specific slide gets completely diluted. Okay? So one concept and no more than 6 lines. That means 6 bullet points if you're using, if you will. So no, you're trying not to use more than 6 bullet points per slide. Okay? Only 3 to 6 ideas per slide with pictures are feasible. And you use it where feasible. Okay? Don't just try to put a nice, cool picture or many pictures on your slide just because you have to. Okay? Just they need to be well thought of. They need to be. I like working with white space. As you can see, this entire presentation, I've created this. So I love working with white space because on top of that white space, I like putting my message, and it's easily readable for my audience. So, for example, you guys, it's easier for you to take notes and retain the information from that slide. I don't like to bombard my audience with too much information being shared with them on the slide. At the same note, I would also like to share some facts with you. You know, people learn 75% of what they know visually. 13% is through their hearing, and 12% through their smell. A picture is 3 times more effective in conveying the information as done with words. As done with words alone, for instance. They're 3 times more powerful than words alone. And both combined together, so for example, a visual and words combined together make it 6 times more effective as words alone. Okay, so these are some interesting facts I thought I'd share with you, and these facts are based on certain research that has been conducted. Okay, so remember, people learn 75% of what they know through visually. Okay, that's why visuals are always very effective. If joined with words, they are very, very powerful for getting your message across. Okay, so these are the don'ts. These are the do's, and now we'll be looking at some of the don'ts. Okay, stuff that you should not be doing is having too many slides. Sometimes you have, in most cases, you have half an hour to present, right? In those half an hour, how many, people love putting in a lot of slides. And to be honest, a good presentation in a half an hour kind of a setting should not exceed, you can have anything, anywhere between 5 to 10 slides are more than enough. Okay, for a half an hour session. Do not increase more slides, because you're always going to have a problem with keeping yourself within the time that you have. Okay, using complex and confusing visuals and flowcharts. I have noticed that some people love doing that. They make these, these flowcharts, and they put in so much information, and they think the more complicated the chart it's going to look like, my audience is going to think that I'm really smart, and I have somehow found the answer to life, the big question, and I've just proved the whole theory of Einstein wrong just by making a really, really confusing flowchart, and full of jargon and information, and I'm going to get a promotion. Guys, it does not work that way. Okay? You end up, what ends up happening is you end up confusing the life out of your audience. Okay? And subconsciously, again, I've told you that, human beings just use logic. As human beings, we try to simplify things. Have you ever heard of anybody, I'm trying to further make things complicated? Or a teacher saying, I'm trying to make further things complicated for my kids to understand. Nobody says that. So what's the process? What's the natural process, of a human brain? It is that you'll come across a problem, and your brain will try and simplify it so that you yourself can digest it, and then you can relay the same message to somebody else, right? So your brain, what it does, it simplifies the information that it sees visually. Okay, always remember that. So try and avoid using confusing visuals such as flowcharts, but the confusing ones. I'm going to further give you references as to what is good and what is bad. Okay, boxes, the arrows going here and there and all over the place, and you're just like, what is going on here, right? And what happens is at the end, tomorrow you ask the audience, oh, you remember slide 3? I showed this whole chart of things, and then the guy would be like, yeah, please email it to me because I'm not too sure. Yeah, because they will not be able to retain it. Okay? So simply reading the text off the screen is also really bad. You should never do that. A lot of people, I've seen so many people just reading stuff off the screen. I mean, why even present? Just email me the presentation, I'll read it myself. You know, I can't read. So there's no point in just reading stuff off the screen. So use those keywords and then elaborate on those keywords. Okay? Packing pictures border to border. I have some of my colleagues who love doing that, by the way. Maybe they should also be attending this session. Yeah, but some people just love putting a picture and then putting another picture right next to it, then putting another picture right below it, and creating this collage that teenagers have in their rooms usually. You know, and I mean, I've seen those as well. It's just amazing. Be very mindful of the fonts and their sizes that you are using, the colors that you are using. Okay. Avoid creating a clutter. For those of you who don't know what clutter means, it just means just too many things just being displayed on one visual, and that's called a clutter. Okay? And now, look at the visual that I have. I'll just say bad slides ahead. Yes, bad slides ahead. Okay, now I'm going to share some examples with you of really bad slides. And let's just take a moment and discuss them. Okay. Now, for me, I'll be very honest with you. If some presenter came and sort of showed me these slides, I don't know. It had a really sort of a devastating effect on me to me and my mind when I see such slides. And the first one, I think, and for the lack of better words, I think it just has zero aesthetics. Right? The word art that has been used is ancient. I think it was being used when probably I was in school. Yeah, and just the way it is being presented, it's just not very. And then again, it has too much of those bullet points which are not even readable in most cases. Yeah, look at the second slide, and it has a whole paragraph, 2 paragraphs written. Yeah, and I can only read the motor car for any something. I can't even read. But anyway, on this slide, there's a whole paragraph that has been written. And let's say, for argument's sake, that this slide was about some motor car company and some sort of a model that they have just created. And look what it's doing. It is giving like these paragraphs which are just being put right in front of the image of the car. So essentially what you're doing, let's say if I was representing this car, the company, motor company, you're actually just, taking away from the whole design of the car, and you've just put, these words right on top of it, and you just completely kill it. Yeah, and again, it's just a clutter of words, and nobody's going to remember anything from such a slide. The next slide is perhaps one of my favorite ones, which people love using. If I can create a slide like this, everybody in the audience is going to think that I am a genius. Right, and I'm just super intelligent that I can create something like this. Right? Well, this is something that you should never ever do. Look what's happening. Do you think that if I was to present any information for you guys in such a format, would you be able to retain? Hell, would you be able, even if you didn't understand it for that moment, you will not be able to retain it in your life. Okay, I'm not going to be able to get any point across to you, right? By showing you something like that, and that's not really smart, I would say, and definitely needs to be reconsidered. Look at the next slide. I'm sure some of you would be really, really familiar with watching such formats in presentations. again, I would say a misuse of graphical representation, topped up with too much information in paragraph form and bullets. So it's like the person who's created this slide has tried to use everything onto one slide. And that's a bad slide. Okay? Now let me show you something refreshing. Look at this. Okay, now I love, I mean, you know, just don't you feel that just watching these slides have refreshed you as opposed to what I just showed you earlier? Look at it from the CEO's perspective. Look at it from a board member's perspective. Product benefits, save time, save money. Bang. Nobody has time to listen to you show them complicated slides with too much information. Really, no, nobody does, right? People have, maybe you're just one part of the organization, and you know, there's so many other things that that person that you're presenting to has to take care of. Okay, everybody wants neat, clean, straightforward information that makes sense. Okay, nobody's interested in a clutter of information. Look at that second one, our current pipeline. Right, very clear. 44% Australia, 17% Singapore, 26% Hong Kong. And let's say we presented this slide to our CEO somewhere, and you know, and then he went somewhere and he was having lunch, and on the lunch, imagine that if he was to quote figures, oh, by the way, where most of our pipeline is actually coming from Australia, and it's actually 4%. He or she will even remember the stats that you are showing them. It's just the way you have shown these, you're presenting this information on this slide. Everybody in the audience will be able to remember it. Okay, it was 26% for Hong Kong. Okay, rather than sort of showing it in some other format. Yeah, this would help people remember the business card test. 3 things that you want people to remember. So those 3 things you need to make sure that people remember them after you're done with your presentation. And if they don't, you failed actually. Okay, so visuals are very, very important. The next slide is a good slide if you want to present strategy. Okay, and strategy can be very, very simple, or it can be very, very confusing. Now, let's say if I was a businessman, or if I was a CEO, I would want to outline a very clear strategy for my team. Yeah, I don't want to confuse them by showing them so much information, complicating it, and then presenting it. The strategy should always be very straightforward and simple so that it's understood by everyone and then it's implemented and followed. And slides can make a lot of difference. Imagine if I was your CEO and I come to you and I show you the previous slide that I showed you about those, with those charts and everything, and I present strategy to all of you in that format. It will confuse you. It will confuse other people who you have to go and relay that strategy to, which is in your own department, right? So you never do that. Look at the next slide with the pie graphs. Look how nice, neat, clean. They're using 3, not even 1, 3 graphical representation on one slide. I would say it's completely acceptable just by looking at the way they have presented it. Because if I was in the audience, I would remember it. It's very clear, it's neat, clean. Look at how much negative space we have on that slide. Okay? So, any questions?
Yes, we have multiple questions, but before we move on to questions, we have a very quick poll on the effectiveness of this session. So I am putting that on the screen for people to respond to it.
Moment.
And we encourage everyone to respond to this poll.
Where's my question? Excuse me. Where's my?
While people are responding to this question, to this poll, let me read the questions that we have for you. People are asking, you're midway in your presentation and you see people coming in the hall and going out of the hall, and now it annoys you that people are leaving. How you can keep people attentive all the time? There's a similar question if there's someone in the audience who's just asking questions just to annoy you, how to deal with such audience?
Okay. Although this question is also addressed in the last part of this session, which is around question and answer, so I can answer it. I answer it then, and along with the other questions. Don't worry, they're all there in this. So yeah.
All right. The poll is about to close.
But I can just add, if people are asking you annoying questions, and if people are just sort of, it's happened to me a lot, especially when I'm delivering sessions with large audiences, and some people do try and sort of just ask questions just to get under your skin. Well, the trick is not to allow or let people to get under your skin. Okay, and if somebody's asking you a question very politely, just try and be as polite as possible. You don't have to get worked up. You don't have to get defensive. That's the key. You don't get defensive with the audience when they're asking you questions. Okay, remember, it's not personal. It's probably just some person, and he or she is trying to, first of all, they've sat there, thought of a question which is very complicated, and it's going to put you in a tough spot, or it's going to annoy you, and that's their objective. I just feel sorry for them. And the best thing you can do to such individuals is just ignore them, not to let them get under your skin, and never ever be defensive. Okay? Because when you're being defensive, you are giving the game away. You are losing control. Okay? And you're letting other people sort of completely see your weaknesses. So try not to get defensive. And I know that's very difficult. And I'll share something else with you. I'm a very emotional person myself. Right? And I'm very passionate about things that I do. And sometimes it's very, very hard for me to control my emotions. Okay? And if somebody asks me a question and I'm very passionate about this subject or a topic, it's very, very easy to get a reaction out of somebody like me. Okay? So even though I'm telling you this, I'm just telling you from my own personal experience that, there's something that I'm preaching or teaching you, but it's something that I'm also telling myself, and I try very, very hard to be conscious about it and try to stop myself from being defensive. And being defensive is it's just that it's just that you don't let other people get the best of you. And that's all I would say. Just keep to your own sort of thing and focus. I know this topic is probably very dear to your heart. Yeah, and people are just remember that people are just doing that to get a reaction out of you. And the best thing to do with such people, and something that my father taught me, is just multiply them by 0. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Okay, now practicing your delivery. Why practice? You must have heard people say when you were young, practice makes perfect. It really does. So again, in the most simplest of terms, once you're done with creating your slides, putting your information together, your lovely crafted message, you've followed your outline, you have incorporated those 3 things that you want people to retain, you need to stand in your room or try to actually, I've discussed this, you need to actually with resources, that if you can actually get a chance to be in the venue where you'll be presenting on the final day, try and be there. But if you can't, for instance, find a space where you can rehearse. Use the tools that, as I mentioned, that you would be using. Slide change. Okay? So rehearsing your content is very, very important. So just like when I do, when I do theater, we always do our rehearsals daily, on a daily basis. And essentially what it does is, it's just common sense. It just makes you good at it. And just like in theater, and if I was to relate that to presentation, there are no second chances. Okay? So when you're practicing your delivery, essentially, you are going to improve every time you rehearse and practice. Okay? Let's just park the visualization technique for 2 minutes, and let's just discuss the other points, and then I'm going to discuss this technique with you. So use the same equipment and tools. We've already discussed this. Use visual aid to reinforce your message, not speak for you. As much as I've been advocating that you use visuals, you use your flow charts and stuff, but you gotta keep it real. You gotta keep it, somewhere in the middle. You can't overkill your slides with visual representation, but you cannot not have them and utilize them, because there's a tool that's available for you to convey your message. And remember what I said, words and visuals combined together are 6 times more powerful than words alone. Having said that, you can't let your visuals do all the talking for you. So words are equally important. A combination, a good healthy combination of both is a good combination. Use it. Okay? Know your content. Do not memorize. Never memorize. Ever. Okay? What will happen is that people will pick it up, that this presenter is just reading off from the screen. They will, at the end, it's going to harm your credibility. Okay? Use the keywords. It will give an impression that you are the subject matter expert. Okay? You're just using those keywords for your visual cues, because obviously you're not going to memorize everything, because that is something you never do. You just need to have enough knowledge to speak about a subject, and that is more important. Okay? Tone is very important. Keep a conversational tone, just like the way I'm speaking to you, I'm just like I would be speaking at a dinner or at a function somewhere with my friend or colleague or whoever I'm with. It's just like you're having a conversation. Your tone should be kept that way. It's actually that simple. Okay? So the tone is, and then tone, you can take it up or you can take it down. And you need to bring these variations. In one simple tone, it will become monotonous and your audience will lose interest. Okay? Avoid jargon and unknown terms. Okay? Again, we have discussed this before. If you know your audience well, and if you think they will know what these terms mean, only then use them. Otherwise, don't use jargon and complicated terms just so that you can sound really smart, because what will happen is your objective is not that you have to sound really smart. Your objective is for other people to come onto your way of thinking and understand and agree with the message that you're trying to communicate. And that is very, very important. Always remember that, please. Okay? Articulate responses. It's very, very important for you to articulate your responses really well, and at the same time focus on your tone that you are using. There are times when you can take it higher, and there are times you need to bring it lower. And that fluctuation is going to break the monotony of the whole session that you are trying to deliver. Okay? Now, very, very quickly, I will share one important technique with you. And this is my own technique, which I have worked on, and it has worked really well for me. And I call it visualization. And I use it for almost anything, whether it be rehearsing for a stage play, for either a session that I need to deliver. I use it for even creating events and executing events. It's called the visualization technique. So, and this is an ability that we all have. We can all visualize. We can all dream. That's what it is. But it's just that you actually close your eyes. And I would like you to do this right now. Okay? So with me, everybody, just close your eyes and try to imagine. Okay? We all have to give a presentation. Imagine that we all have to give a presentation. I just want you to close your eyes and imagine yourself standing in front of an audience. Okay, visualize yourself standing in front of an audience. Either it's an auditorium, maybe, or a boardroom, or wherever you are, just visualize in your head. Okay? And once you are there, I want you to imagine yourselves delivering that presentation in your mind. It is very, 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 very important. Okay? And do a run-through of that entire presentation in your mind first. And do it a couple of times before you actually start rehearsing. Okay? And this is called the visualization technique. And you can use it for many different things, and I can speak more on visualization techniques, but in the best interest of time, I need to move on. But do remember, when you are thinking about rehearsing your whatever it is, it's a presentation or a speech, yeah, start by visualization. And visualize yourself in your mind giving the presentation the way you think it should be delivered. And once you're done with that, and once you will notice that once you start rehearsing, actually speaking, and while you're rehearsing, you will notice that a lot of things that you have thought about in your mind while you were visualization are now coming to life. And that's the beauty of our brain, and that's the way it works. I mean, just try it out, and you will notice the difference. And there was even a couple of questions asked about speaking and accents and all of that. And in your mind, you can be anything you want. Okay, there is no limit to a human mind. It can take you beyond space and time, even. It can take you anywhere, right? That's the beauty of our mind. So take yourself there where you want yourself to be in your mind before you actually get in there. And it'll make a lot of difference. Okay, so remember that. Okay. There was one small little activity, but we only have another 15 minutes left for this session. So I would like to continue, if you guys don't mind, and let's get to preparing yourself mentally now. You are actually there, you've done your rehearsal, your presentation is in your laptop, carrying it with you. The show is about to begin, and now we're going to talk about those lovely things that we all face, and there were some questions around that as well, and I'm glad we have some time, and we can quickly go through this. Okay, so remain positive and stay relaxed. That's very important, and keep saying to yourself, I am ready, I am relaxed. Okay, use deep breathing to sort of get rid of the tension and the jitters that you have. And always remember, nervousness is a part of the whole presentation process. Everybody gets nervous. I get nervous. Professional actors get nervous. Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, they're Donalds. Everybody gets the jitters before they're about to come in front of a live audience, and speak. So it's a natural process. You can't escape it. A lot of people say, oh yeah, I don't get nervous. That's just them saying that is a way to deal with that nervousness. They go in denial. Okay? But nervousness is a natural process. We all go through it. If you are going through it, it's normal. It's absolutely normal. Best thing you can do it's a fear, right? Embrace your fears, as they say. Embrace your nervousness. Grab it. Give it a big, warm, fuzzy hug, if you will. Just like this. Really. And just grab it like that. That, hey, I'm here you are, nervousness, and I've got you, and I'm not going to let you go. Okay? Because it's natural. It's a part of the whole process. Okay? So do not feel that you're getting nervous and there's something wrong with you, or you're not a good presenter. All of this is the scrap. Yeah, it's completely natural. It's there to frighten you. So don't get frightened. Just grab it and frighten it, and tell it that I'm here, I'm relaxed, I'm ready, and I'm up for the challenge. Yeah, and I will reach my objective, and that's what I'm here to do. Just tell yourself that. Don't let nervousness frighten you. Frighten your nervousness. by embracing it. Okay? Always remember that. Wear clothing which makes you feel comfortable and confident. Okay? And clothing can have a lot of impact when you are delivering a presentation or when you're speaking in public. Okay? So use clothing that makes you feel comfortable and confident. But be mindful of it because, as I mentioned earlier about the visuals, you, my friend, as a presenter, are a part of that visual which your audience is seeing. You can't ignore yourself and the way you are appearing to everybody. It's very, very important. Your hand gestures, your movements, and you know, it's. I wish we had more time, and there's so much more I would love to share with you on this topic, but unfortunately, we have to move on. Okay, interact with the audience as they come in the room. We have already discussed that, and I've given you some examples, my real-life examples of how interacting with the audience before I start the presentation have helped me deliver impactful presentations. Okay. Okay, PowerPoint critique. Now, this is really cool. You know, you made your slides, everything is there. Yeah, look at it and critique it. Okay, it's very, very important to give yourself a critique. What works? What doesn't work? How could you improve? Right? I mean, when you're rehearsing, have your teammates sit with you when you're rehearsing. Request them to take notes while you're presenting. Request them to share these 3 things with you. What has worked? What they thought was really nice about your presentation when they saw your rehearsal run through. What doesn't work? What they thought was not really sort of appropriate, or you know, could have been done in a better way. Yeah. So let people and yourself be the judge, and sort of before you actually go in the real life situation where you have to give your presentations. Believe me, I have seen CEOs rehearsing their presentations. Right. So you know, just because you're rehearsing, and you know, it doesn't mean that you know. I mean, if you know, you'd be shocked to know that you know all these great politicians that I've been giving references to, yeah, Bill Clinton or Barack Obama or even the Donald now. Yeah, they've all taken public speaking courses and classes at some stage in their career, either in the business schools that they went to, or later on when they got to the presidency, or before that when they started the campaign. They all took these sessions to a point which even helps them with their hand gestures. Okay, there are even some gestures around power, which I don't want to get into right now. But there are gestures that they use, and I have sort of attended some trainings around those, and how you move a certain way, how you shake hand, and that's where the Donald is, his hand gesture about shaking hands is always being picked up. It's actually all power talk with gestures. Okay, and then you can apply it in public speaking as well, and you can also apply it in giving your presentation and reinforcing your messages with your hand gestures. It's really important. You can make it big. You can make it really nice if you have the right hand gestures. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so hand gestures. Do not forget to make and use those hand gestures at those right, precise moments during your delivery. Okay? Good. Presenting. Always remember, guys, the most powerful tool, visual aid that you will ever have, yeah, the most powerful ones are your words, it's your voice, and it's your body language. Okay? 3 things. The most powerful tools, your best friends while you're presenting. Yeah? They are not some application, they are not some whatever you are using, yeah, but they are actually there with you. They're your words, your voice, and your body language. That's going to make the difference at the end of the day. Okay? So remember that. So focus on it, work on it, build on it, improve on it. Okay, the delivery. So a little bit about the delivery. is, again, stuff that we have discussed. I'm just sort of further reinforcing is tone is very important, has to be conversational, okay? You can't just start screaming, or you can't speak so low and the same monotonous tone of voice, and if I continue to speak like this, believe me, in the next 5 minutes you will get so bored that you will want to just run away. Okay? So tone is very important. You need to know when to raise it and when to bring it down, when to be soft and when to be hard. Okay? Pay attention to it. Be audible. You don't want to speak so slow that you're not audible. Okay? You need to have an audible voice. Okay? Avoid stuff like kind of. Take a breath every now and then. Really. It will help you get rid of your best friend called nervousness. It's the jitters. It's because of that you're going, kind of, sort of, yeah, but, you know, and what's happening is you're losing credibility. Okay? And you're losing that impact, yeah, which you need to maintain. So avoid these kind of ums and hums and kind of and sort of. Okay? Be there to the point with clarity. Okay? Watch the audience for non-verbal clues. It's unfortunate that I can't watch you guys for the non-verbal clues, and I'm really having this problem because I was really nervous about it. What am I going to do? I can't see them. I don't have the control. As an artist, as an actor, as a professional, as anything, as somebody who's conducting this session, I will not have control. I do not know what those non-verbal cues are with my audience. I don't know whether I bored them. I don't know whether I was able to make them smile with my joke. I don't know anything. And I'm handicapped. And from somebody like me, you have no idea how limited I feel because I'm doing this session via a webinar. Because I can't see you guys. I can't pick on those non-verbal clues. Yeah, I can't ensure. I don't know what you guys are doing, or whether you're listening to me, or whether I'm just on mute and you're reading a book, talking to a friend, or whether you're even there in front of the screen or not. Right? I don't know. But in real life situations, when you're delivering these sessions in front of a live audience, you've got to pick on these non-verbal clues. Okay? And they're very, very important. Yeah? Because you don't want your audience, you know, sort of getting bored, or when you can tell whether they've understood your message, whether they haven't, whether it's a drag, you know, whether you need to sort of reinforce a message. So non-verbal clues are really, really important. You need to pick on them. Yeah, maintain eye contact with the audience at all times. Yeah, don't lose that eye contact with the audience. Okay, and remember all these points that I've been stressing on. Okay, because they will help you. Okay. The audience. Techniques for attention. So now a couple of the questions that I promised you that will be answered in my presentation. Yes, techniques for attention. The audience. Change what you're doing. Pause or alter your tone. What happens is that you break the monotony. Okay, and you give the audience something fresh to look at, to hear. Okay, and then it's obviously they get stimulated and you have their attention. Yeah. Do surveys, verbal questions, and then again, my limitation that I can't do that more frequently with you guys because of the format that we are using now. So ask questions. How many of you think XYZ? How many of you would agree to XYZ? What are your thoughts on XYZ? Yeah, so what am I doing? I'm trying to engage my audience to participate. And when people are participating, you improve their attention. Okay, because they stop listening. Okay. Provide analogies, vivid examples of what you're trying to suggest. Use personal stories wherever you can. Yeah, because they're your personal stories, you know them, and you can tell them really well. So use them. to get attention of people, and people like to hear about personal stories. Okay? Keep returning to your core message time after time. So for instance, you can say, here is what my last point meant, or this is what I was trying to suggest on the previous slide. This is exactly in reference to what I had suggested earlier when I was speaking about XYZ. Okay? Be flexible. Remember that, guys. You need to be flexible. And the best thing about delivering presentation is that every experience is unique. Right? This experience for me right now as a presenter is completely unique. Okay? I'm sure as an audience member, this session, those of you who've been, you're here, it could be unique as well. But as a presenter, yeah, every time you present, you will have a unique experience. Try to enjoy it. Yeah, try to enjoy the whole process of speaking in public. Yeah, use all the cues, tools, stories, techniques that I have shared with you in this session, and enjoy it. If you're not enjoying the whole process of the presentation, imagine how the hell is another person sitting in front of you going to enjoy it if you're not having a good time yourself. So you really need to enjoy the whole process of this communication process, whether it's a debate or public speaking or a presentation. Get involved. Be passionate about it. Okay? Showing your passion is the key. Okay, so the more passionate you are, yeah, the more people are going to pick that up. Believe me. People are pick up on the fact whether you're passionate about the stuff that you're speaking about or not. And remember, now this is a reiteration of all the stuff that we talked about. It helps people realize that you're genuinely involved in what you're speaking about. Yeah, people, you will get the people come to your way of thinking in a more effective way. Okay? And you will have to do less of an effort to get them to come to your way of thinking. So always remember that. Okay? Now very quickly, we are just going to discuss, there was a couple of questions that were asked as well around the Q&A session. So I'm going to very quickly discuss a technique with you. Which is dealing with questions. Okay, it's a very short, sweet, and simple. Mr. Qureshi, I just really, really enjoy him. I'm going to take him out for dinner this evening, and we're going to have words. Okay. Anyway, so getting back to dealing with questions, there's a small little technique which we call the tract technique. Okay, so just write down on a piece of paper the tract technique. Okay, so what is tract? Very simple, straightforward. Anybody can use it. Tract. Send the questionnaire. So Rashid asked me a question.
So how to deal with time when presenting? What to do if, in case you are short on time, you have to skip some slides?
That is a really good question, Rashid. Okay, so that's what I mean by thanking the questionnaire, and thank you for asking that. Yeah. So that's what and you add in a feel-good factor for the person who's asked the question. I also do that. So there was another question that was asked that if somebody's asking questions just to annoy you, thank them. Let them know that they cannot get under your skin, but do not get defensive. Okay? Always remember that. Repeat the question. Okay? So let's say if somebody is asking you a question, you can just repeat the same question and after thanking them. Okay? Sorry, Shivam, you had something to say? No? Sure? Okay. A. answer the question, obviously, if somebody's asked you. Okay? So you thank the question, then you repeat it. Okay? And then you answer the question. Check with the questionnaire if they are satisfied. And then thank them again. And this is the track technique. Now, to answer the question, the annoying one. If somebody is annoying you with an annoying question, now just apply this track technique to that annoying, the person who's asking you that annoying question. You thank him for asking the annoying question. You repeat the annoying question. Okay? Then you answer the annoying question if you possibly can, and check with the questionnaire whether they are satisfied with your answer. And believe you me, if you can do that, you know, you are just a really, really good presenter, and that you will just put that presenter immediately in their place. And don't forget to thank him one more time. Okay? So with that, ladies and gentlemen, it has been wonderful past couple of hours, and I would like to now call Mr. Harun Jan, the Head of Member Affairs, lovely person, and I would like to thank him for also giving me the opportunity to come here and speak with all of you. So over to Mr. Harun.
Thank you very much, Aman. Please keep sitting. I think this was an excellent session. What you normally find happening in such sessions is people teaching you tools, how to make your slides attractive. We always believe that it is the content that matters the most, and it's the delivery of the presentation that matters the most. So what my friend Hamad has spoken to you today has mostly been around how to put meat into your stuff, how to make meaningful presentations, and how to deliver them effectively. This is rare content, my friends. This is going to be a series of webinars, and I'm getting Hamad to commit to a series here, and that's why I barged in in the end to get Hamad to commit to a series of webinars. So Hamad, whenever you're free next, we'd like you to come in again, reiterate some of them, give them some work, get them to, test them, test all the participants of the session. How much have they been able to retain from here? Yeah. And how much have they been able to
that would be really, really good if you guys can get in touch with me. I'll just my email address is hamad.azim@accaglobal.com, and you will just have that on the screen as well. So if you have any questions, now we can get to the question. But if you have any questions, you can always email me, ask me, and if there's any particular sort of segment of the whole presentation process that you would like to sort of get more details on, or perhaps have another seminar on, definitely that can be looked at, and we can come up with something. And so before I go, what the questions, if there are any now, I've been doing the questions. If there are any burning questions right now, if you guys have time, please do ask. You can always email me as well, and I will get back to you. So, Rashid.
Well, we definitely have some very burning comments that I think you should be aware of. There is a member who is thanking you, saying thank you for being such a great presenter, Hamad. And then there's a person who's saying, sir, excellent one question. Suppose question comes from a babe, how do you answer that? Okay, we'll come to that. And then there was a comment, we would love to have such webinars in the future from Hamad. So we are definitely going to be conducting another webinar soon. And there are so many congratulatory comments. And there was a reassuring comment from Umar Rashid. He said, Hamad Saab, on a lighter note, we are all here when you asked. I'm not sure if people are listening to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, guys, I hope that you really enjoyed this, and as much as I have, because I really have enjoyed this. Again, I would like to thank Harun, and I would like to really thank all of you for having me here. It has been both a pleasure and an honor to share whatever I have learned over the years around the topic of impactful presentation. And please do reach out. My email address is right there. And there you go. You can all see it on the screen right now on the slide. Please do reach out, email me if there are any questions, and I would be really looking forward to having more sessions with you and spending time with you. And believe me, as I said earlier on, if there is in any way I can sort of contribute by helping any of our members to improve on their skill sets, it will indeed be a great honor and a matter of prestige for me. So thank you everyone, and thank you for being such a great audience. And have a great night and stay beautiful. Okay, take care. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.